olvidó la primera parte. Bueno, ni modo. En fin, vamos a ver.
¿Ya le puso que se escuchara o no?
A ver. Short sounds. Aquí está. Ok, ya.
While the English spoken in New Zealand does share a lot of features with Australia, it's a distinct variety of English that has its own unique features as well. Between 1788 and 1841, New Zealand was loosely part of the colony of New South Wales, which later became part of Australia. The earliest European settlers in New Zealand were traders and whalers from New South Wales who set up trading stations. They were followed by missionaries from England beginning in 1814. The colony of New Zealand was declared as a separate entity in 1841, and Britain began to carry out a process of planned settlement. Most migrants came from England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, but many did not come directly. A significant number arrived from Australia, so some of them likely brought their children who had been born in Australia. This could have had an effect on the way other children in the colony spoke and influenced the emerging New Zealand accent. According to the census of 1871, the vast majority of migrants were from Britain and Ireland, but an inordinate number were Scottish or Irish, 27.3% and 22% respectively. These particular percentages could have also had an influence on the emerging accent. New Zealand English resembles Australian English more than any other variety, which may be a result of that early Australian settlement, a somewhat similar mix of migrant accents, and continuous contact between New Zealand and Australia ever since those days. The Kiwi accent. Not all Kiwi accents are the same. There are basically two accents, a cultivated accent, which more closely resembles British received pronunciation, and a broad accent, which includes more distinctly Kiwi features. But a spectrum of accents exists in between the two, with those somewhere in the middle range being considered general New Zealand English. As is typical in England and Australia, accents of New Zealand are generally non-rhotic, meaning that R is not pronounced at the end of a syllable, but is rendered as a vowel. For example, I say beer, but Kiwis say
beer.
The main thing that distinguishes the English of New Zealand from Australian English and other varieties is its vowels. Some of them shifted during the 20th century, and these changes are more pronounced in broad accents. Most strikingly, the original short front vowels shifted. A became e became I became e. These changes lead to some interesting contrasts. Listen to these examples in my accent and a New Zealand accent. Chat.
Chat.
Mess.
Mess.
Sit.
Sit.
The shift in Kiwi vowels was a chain shift, meaning the first vowel began to sound like the second one, and the second one began to sound like the third one. This might result in a misunderstanding if you aren't aware of the shift. Sax.
Sax.
Sex.
Six.
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 Please be mindful of this when a Kiwi is talking about Christmas sax or playing the sax. I find that when listening to Kiwis with a particularly broad accent, I have to sort of translate the vowels in my head to make sure that I'm understanding the right word. Aussies love to make fun of the third vowel shift, accusing Kiwis of saying fush and chups. In Aussie English, that same vowel has actually shifted slightly in the opposite direction, so Kiwis love to accuse Aussies of saying fish and chips. Of course, both pronunciations are exaggerated. Before I mentioned the shift from a to e, but it's worth pointing out that Kiwi English underwent the trap-both split, like British and Australian English, but unlike North American English. The trap-both split means that the early modern English vowel a became long a in received pronunciation, and long a in New Zealand pronunciation before these specific consonants. Before other consonants, it's a in received pronunciation and e in New Zealand. So if you're a speaker of North American English, some of the words that you pronounce with an a will have e in Kiwi English, but others will have a. Another more recent shift in Kiwi vowels is that the vowels in near and square are pronounced the same by some speakers. Near.
Near.
Square.
Square.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Another thing you might hear in Kiwi English is that past participles like grown and known are sometimes pronounced as
grown
and
known
with a vowel inserted. That probably developed by analogy with other past participles like written or spoken, which have a vowel in that position. This pronunciation is used by around 50% of New Zealanders. While there are different Kiwi accents based on social and economic factors, for the most part there aren't regional variations. An exception is the regional accent of Southland and part of neighbouring Otago, where more than half of the original settlers were from Scotland. One characteristic of this accent is the alveolar trill, or rolling R sound, which occurs after vowels, these days in particular after words with the vowel in nurse. This is a feature that once faded and became less common, but then rebounded and started to become more common again. There's also a slightly different accent that is specific to some Kiwis of Maori background. It's particularly broad in its vowels, it's sometimes rhotic, like the Southland accent, the T sound is sometimes unaspirated, and voiced Z is often devoiced to S at the end of words. Something that appears in Kiwi English in general, but more often in Maori English, is the high-rising terminal, something I talked about in my video on Australian English as well. High-rising terminal occurs when the speaker ends a statement with rising intonation like a yes or no question. For example,
During the holidays, I like to get out of town, go to the mountains, do some tramping, or go to the beach with my mates, that sort of thing.
this is done to sort of touch base with the listener while you're speaking, to check that they're following what you're saying. Another thing, which was originally known as a feature of Maori speech but is now used by New Zealanders in general, is using a at the end of a sentence to signal that they want to check if the statement is correct or to elicit a response. For example,
It's hot today, eh?
it's similar to the way Canadians say a, but Canadians these days don't say a as often as they used to. Kiwis now take the crown. Okay, we're sort of moving beyond the realm of accent now, so let's move on to Kiwi vocabulary and expressions. A lot of the casual words and expressions used in New Zealand are also used in Australia, and in some cases in the UK or Ireland where they originated.
Heaps.
This means a lot. It's also used in Australia and the UK. Of course, this word exists in North American English as well, meaning piles, but it's not often used with the meaning of a lot.
There were heaps of people at the beach. Gutted.
This means disappointed. This is also used in the UK and Australia. The shop's out of Marmite?
Yeah, bro, I'm gutted. Sweet as.
This is another expression meaning great or awesome. This phrase is an abbreviation of a comparative phrase, like sweet as hell or something like that. This is very common in New Zealand and Australia, and can be used with lots of different adjectives.
It's hot as. Knackered. Buggered.
These words mean tired or exhausted. This is originally slang from the UK that's now used both in New Zealand and Australia.
I'm pretty knackered.
It's worth noting that bugger is similar to the F word, though not quite as taboo. It can also be used in some other contexts where you might hear the F word too. For example,
Bugger all.
like its F word equivalent, it means nothing or none. What did you do over the holidays?
Bugger all. Chocker. Chocker block.
This means full. Do you want anything else to eat?
Nah, I'm chocker.
Mm.
Togs.
This means swimsuit. This is used in New Zealand, Australia, and Ireland. It's probably a result of Irish influence on Kiwi and Australian English.
A cracker of a day.
This means a beautiful day or a great day. The pattern of a cracker of a something can be used with nouns in general to say that something's great.
That's a cracker of a song. Looks a bit sus.
This means that someone or something looks a bit suspicious. Sus is used in other varieties of English too, but in different expressions and contexts.
Mate.
Like in Australia, this word means friend, but can also be confrontational depending on the context.
Good mate.
Bro.
This word too can be either friendly or confrontational. I've been told that mate is used more by non-Maori, while bro is used more by Maori. In fact, Maori English is sometimes referred to as bro English. So there's a lot of crossover between Kiwi and Australian English, but other words and expressions are uniquely Kiwi.
Choice.
This means great or awesome.
The wops. The wop wops.
This means the middle of nowhere.
Chili bin.
This means a portable cooler.
Jandals.
This means rubber sandals. Apparently this is a contraction of the phrase Japanese sandals.
Batch.
This word refers to a holiday home and is used in most of New Zealand, on the North Island and the north half of the South Island.
Crib.
This is the word for a holiday home that's used on the southern half of the South Island. If your batch is out in the wops, you might do some
Tramping.
which means hiking. And while you're tramping, you might run into a
Captain Cooker.
which is a wild boar. This comes from the name of Captain Cook. He was the first person who released pigs into the wild in New Zealand.
Oh,
A
my
different
goodness.
type of wild pig you might encounter is kune kune. Kune is a Maori word meaning plump. And if it's cold outside, I hope you bring a
Swan dry.
which refers to a heavy woolen shirt.
Sí,
This is
adelante.
actually the name of a New
Era un
Zealand-based
cerdito,
company
era
that
un
makes that
oso.
kind of shirt.
Ahí,
But the
ahí
brand
voy.
name has become a ubiquitous
Se
word for
trabó
this
esto.
type of product. And while you're on holiday,
Ahí está. Ahora sí que.
No, que porque estaba, o sea, no me acuerdo, pero dijo algo de oso, era un cerdito.
Era un cerdo. A los cerdos salvajes, o sea, los jabalíes, en vez de decirle wild boar, como sería normal en inglés, cerdo salvaje, pues, se les dice Captain Cooka, porque fue el capitán Cook el que descubrió la isla de Nueva Zelanda. Bueno, en inglés, primer inglés que tuvo contacto, perdón, con la isla de Nueva Zelanda, el que liberó a los cerdos para que se volvieran salvajes ahí. Así que es por eso que les dicen Captain Cooka. Pero al cerdo doméstico se les dice cune cune, porque lo adoptaron de la palabra indígena que significa plomero. No sé por qué. Se les ocurrió llamarlo así a los nativos, pero así lo adoptaron ya los blancos que migraron para allá. Así que por eso se dice cune cune en vez de swine o pig o pork, ¿no? Como sería en inglés normal.
Ah, ok, gracias.
¿Y qué tal se le está haciendo a fin de cuentas el inglés de Nueva Zelanda? ¿Muy difícil o más simple? Igual. Mira, good, Swandry. A woolen shirt. ¿Nada? ¿Les da igual el inglés o les gustó más? No sé.
Hay algunas palabras como que muy simples, ¿no?
Sí, esa es la cosa sobre todo del sur, o sea, el inglés que se ven en Australia, en Nueva Zelanda, que es como eso de wow, wow, jandals. O sea, como que intentaron mezclarlo con los idiomas nativos de allá o algo así, porque a mí me suenan como más intentos de palabras indígenas, pues. Es como muy onomatopéyicas, por así decirlo. Sí, pero está raro, hasta parece otro idioma casi, ¿no?
I hope you
Feel a box of birds.
which means be in a good mood. I hear this is sometimes used in Australia as well, but much less often. When you're not feeling a box of birds, be careful not to,
Pack a sad.
which means be upset or throw a tantrum.
That kid is packing a sad.
Yeah, he's a howly bag.
Howly bag.
This means whiner or crybaby.
A crack up.
This means something or someone funny.
That guy's a crack up.
In my variety of English, we use crack up, but as a verb, not a noun.
Good as gold.
This means doing very well. So, how's life?
Good as gold. Pakarood.
This word means broken. It comes from the Maori word pakaru. Loanwords from Maori are definitely one of the most notable elements of the English of New Zealand. Some Maori words are optionally used instead of an English equivalent. For example, Maori greetings are quite widely used, like
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
which means hello or thank you, but literally be healthy.
Waka.
This is the Maori word for canoe.
Kiwi.
This word comes from Maori and refers to the kiwi bird, but you probably also know it as the name of a fruit and the nickname for New Zealanders.
Pākehā.
This word refers to New Zealanders of European descent, but can also be extended to non-Maori New Zealanders in general. It's not only Maoris who use this word, by the way.
Taonga.
This means treasure.
Mana.
This means a person or organization of great prestige. It comes from the Maori word mana, meaning prestige, authority, or its source, spiritual power.
Hui.
This means meeting.
We're holding a hui tomorrow morning.
In some cases, words or phrases combine both English and Maori.
Half pie.
This means substandard or unfinished. Pai is the Maori word for good.
Couch kumara.
This means couch potato. Kumara means sweet potato in Maori. By the way, if you're interested in a closer look at the Maori language, check out my previous video on Maori right here. Just like Aussies, Kiwis make frequent use of hypochoristics, in other words, diminutive forms that show affinity for someone or something. These usually consist of one syllable from the base word followed by a vowel suffix like e or o. Some are the same as in Australia, while others are specific to New Zealand. A forklift driver.
Forky.
Good.
Goodo. Smoko.
This means break time or a short break. I guess it originally meant a smoke break. Registration becomes
Regio.
compensation.
Compose.
Names are often treated this way too. Deborah becomes
Dibs.
Sharon becomes
Sheza.
Sometimes rhotic sounds turn into z sounds. It happens with place names too. Queensland,
Queenie.
Auckland,
Orcs.
Taranaki.
The Neki.
People often make up new ones on the spot, just to play with words, lighten a conversation, or whatever.
Yeah.
As you can see, the English of New Zealand is a special and unique variety of English, in particular because of its characteristic pronunciation. We also saw a lot of similarities with Australian English, but even in those cases when casual words and expressions were the same, the New Zealand accent was fairly distinct. I guess that's a result of living so far from most other places that people can't find you on the map. The question of the day. For Kiwis, are there any other features of your variety of English that you want us to know about? And to other people, what's your favorite Kiwi word or expression that you heard in this video? Write your answers in the comments down below. As always, I would like to give a special thanks to the Lang-focused Patreon supporters, especially the ones right here on the screen who are the top tier Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters help keep this channel going month after month, and there are also some special bonus benefits of becoming a patron. To see what it's all about, check out patreon.com/langfocus. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.
Ok. Entonces, ¿cómo se les hizo el inglés de Australia? Digo, de Nueva Zelanda. A ver si se les antojaría estudiarlo también en algún futuro, ya que aprendan bien el inglés de acá de Estados Unidos, claro.
Más o menos.
Difícil. Bueno, pues sí está interesante su tipo de inglés, la verdad. Pero bueno, mejor allá la próxima clase mejor hacemos una comparativa con el inglés de la India, con algún video de... ¿Cuál es el de Lucy? La inglesa esa.
Maestro, yo
Sí.
tengo una pregunta.
Sí, adelante.
Salieron las papas fritas, bueno, las papas a la francesa. ¿De qué hablabas? ¿Hablaba de algo así como...
No, que papas... Ah, bueno, sí, que por ejemplo, en lo que sale al principio de las papas que salieron, es que, bueno, es un platillo, yo no lo llamaría así, para mí es más bien una botana, pero bueno, que le dicen fish and chips, ya de Inglaterra, ¿no? Y bueno, también lo tienen en Australia y Nueva Zelanda. Y en Australia se le dicen fish and chips, ¿no? Como está muy largo la I. Mientras que en Nueva Zelanda le dicen fish and chops, ¿verdad? Sí, la I no sé cómo mutó en pero ahí está. Y la la última que salió de las papas fue de cooked potato, que lo que usaban con el maori, es más para referirse al camote, así le dicen. Pero en inglés el camote se dice sweet potato, o sea, papa dulce.
Ok, gracias.
De nada.
Pero está rico y se me antojó tantito.
Ah, bueno, pues al rato ahí pides uno. Sí, bueno, pues para la próxima clase yo creo que iría el de es la diferencia entre el inglés de la India y el inglés británico, para que vean qué tan diferente es también. Porque, o sea, de que tiene hindi, tiene india, ¿no? De que hablan muy de, of course, así es como hablan los hindús. Así que sí, está muy así. Ok, espérense, déjenle saco una captura de pantalla para hacer uno de tarea. Un mail. Ok, vamos a recortarlo. No, se cortó. Se quitó. Ok, vamos a ver. Así, ya está. No te lo eché. Ok, entonces continuamos por acá. Bueno, pues ahí está. Entonces, para el siguiente. Look in the picture, then say each sentence out loud, filling the gaps. Entonces, ve la imagen, entonces di cada enunciado en voz alta, llenando los espacios. ¿Ok? Entonces, el primero, ¿no? There is a supermarket. ¿Ok? ¿Cuál sería el siguiente?
There is.
Bueno, there isn't, o no sé, ¿ustedes dónde ven un parque? No, ¿verdad? Pues sería there isn't. ¿Ok? There isn't a park. No hay parque en esta ciudad. Ok. Ok, en este, ¿hay o no hay hotel?
Entonces, es there is, creo.
Ajá, there is a hotel. Exacto. ¿Ahí qué sería?
There are.
Ajá, there are no cafés, no hay cafés. Aquí.
There isn't. Porque creo que
Ajá, exacto, no hay ninguno. There isn't an airport. Ok. Aquí. ¿Qué sería?
There are two stores.
Muy bien. There are two stores. Está muy grande. Pero bueno, aquí. ¿Qué sería?
There isn't.
Ajá, there isn't a train station. There isn't. Ok, y ya lo último.
There are two
Theaters. Theaters. Or two theaters. Ok. There are two theaters. Muy bien. Ok. Sí, parece que sí lo agarraron rápido esta parte. Qué bueno. Bueno, lo siguiente. Por acá. Eso. Bueno, using a and the. Usando, bueno, literalmente sería uno y el, ¿verdad? Use a definite article, the, or indefinite article, a and, to talk about things in a specific or general terms of use. Terms. Use some to talk about more than one thing. Entonces, usa el artículo definido el o el artículo indefinido un, ¿no? Una, o sea, para hablar sobre cosas en específico o términos generales. Usa algunos para hablar sobre más de una cosa. Entonces, key language, clase de lenguaje, A and D. Use a to talk about a thing in general. Use the to talk about a place, person, or thing that you and the listener both know about. Entonces, usa a para hablar sobre alguna cosa en general. Usa el para hablar sobre un lugar, persona o alguna cosa o cosa que tú y quien te escuche sepan. ¿Ok? Entonces, igual, ¿no? Use a because you are talking about your work in general, not in a specific place where you work. Entonces, usa a para, porque estás hablando sobre tu trabajo en general, no de un lugar específico donde tú trabajas. Entonces, I work in a library, trabajo en una biblioteca. I work in the library on Main Street. Trabajo en la biblioteca en la Main Street. En Main Street, ¿no? Y le dice, okay, use the, because you're talking about this specific building where you work. Entonces usa the porque estás hablando sobre un edificio específico donde tú trabajas. Entonces, for their examples, a and the. Use a and to talk about jobs. Más ejemplos, a and the. Usa a and para hablar sobre trabajos. Jim is an artist. Jim es un artista. Use a and to talk about jobs. Usa a and para hablar sobre trabajos, ¿no? Use and before words that start with a vowel. Entonces, usa and para palabras que, antes de las palabras que usan una vocal, que inician con una vocal. Is there a bank near here? ¿Hay algún banco cerca de aquí? Usa a con is there and there is. Okay? The doctor at hospital is good. La doctora en el hospital es buena. Entonces, usa the para hablar sobre un doctor en particular. I go to the bank on the Broad Street. Usa el para hablar sobre un banco particular. Entonces, cross out the incorrect words in each sentence. Cruza las palabras incorrectas en cada enunciado. Y aquí nos viene el ejemplo, ¿no? Charlotte is an actress. Charlotte es una actriz. ¿Ok? Entonces, ¿cómo sería la primera?
The
new teacher is called Miss Jones. Entonces, porque estamos hablando de un maestro específico, el nuevo, ¿verdad? Entonces, la nueva maestra se llama señorita Jones. Entonces, tachamos a y an. Entonces, el segundo.
There is a good cafe in the park.
Exacto. Perdón. Hay un buen café en el parque. No especificas en qué parque, qué parte del parque, así que simplemente nomás dices que el café está bueno. Ok, entonces se usa a. El siguiente. ¿Cuál sería?
I work at the hotel.
Sí. Ok, trabajo en el hotel al lado de la biblioteca. Ok. Perdón, porque estás especificando que va a ser en ese hotel que está al lado de otro lugar específico. Ok. Aquí, ¿cuál sería? Hay una alberca cerca de mi oficina. Sí, exacto. Hay una alberca porque no está, ¿por qué estás usando hay? Y automáticamente lo convierte como algo en específico, impersonal. La 5.
Es the.
No, sería it is a dog's favorite. No, perdón, sí es the, sí, es el juguete favorito del perro, así que sí. Estás hablando sobre el juguete específico. La 6.
¿Sí?
A ver. No, es Anne. Jane es una artista en la galería. Si diría of the gallery, ahí sería diferente porque sería la artista de la galería, ¿verdad? Entonces tachamos Anne and the. Y ya la última.
Profesor, ¿pero qué no se tiene que poner una N después? Bueno, en la de A.
Ay, sí, no había visto
¿La
que
N?
había tachado la N, perdón. Gracias. Se me fue ahí. Mal pulso. Ok. Muy bien. Jane is an artist at the gallery. Exacto. Entonces sí, Jane es una artista en la galería, ¿no? Jamie, perdón. Entonces, la última.
¿Qué dice, maestro? O sea, see you are.
Te veo en el café en la estación de autobús. Entonces, ¿cuál sería?
¿Sí?
Exacto, D. Ajá. Ay, perdón. Sí, esa es la correcta, D, porque estás especificando el café que está en esa estación, ¿verdad? Ok. Muy bien. Parece que sí lo entendieron bien. Ok. Vamos al siguiente. He language some. Clase de lenguaje a algunos. Bueno, algunos, ¿no? You can only use a or and for singular nouns. Use some for plurals. Entonces, tú puedes usar a y en para sustantivos singulares. Usa some, algunos, para plurales. Entonces, use a and to talk about one thing. Usa a y and para hablar sobre una cosa. Singular, ¿verdad? There is a hotel in the town. Hay un hotel en el pueblo. There are some hotels in the town. Hay algunos hoteles en el pueblo. Use some to talk about more than one thing. Usa some para hablar sobre más de una cosa. Plural, ¿verdad? Entonces, further examples, a some. Más ejemplos, a some. There is a bank on Main Street. Hay un banco en la calle principal. Ok, y pues ahí nos viene el banco. There are some banks on the main street. Hay algunos bancos en la calle principal. There is a waiter over there. Hay un mesero por ahí. There are some children in the park. Hay algunos niños en el parque. Ok, entonces, fill in the gaps with a or some. Rellena los espacios con a o some. Ya nos viene el primer ejemplo. There is a restaurant in the park. ¿Cómo sería en el siguiente?
There are some stores on British.
On the Broad Street. Muy bien, exacto. ¿Por qué? Porque están en plural, ¿verdad? Se nota. Aquí. En un café al lado del castillo. Ah, exacto, muy bien. There is a café next to the castle. Ok. La tercera.
Some.
Exacto, there are some cakes on the table. Hay algunos pasteles en la mesa. Cuarto. Exacto, there is a phone here. Hay un teléfono aquí. Quinto.
Some.
Sí, hay algunas fábricas en el centro. Muy bien. Rewrite the sentences correcting the errors. Reescribe los enunciados corrigiendo los errores. Entonces ya nos viene, ¿no? There are a movie theater on the main street. There is a movie theater on the main street. Entonces, la primera, ¿cuál sería?
There are some supermarkets.
Muy bien. In the town. There are some supermarkets. The town. Vamos a reducirle este tamaño. Aquí está, muy bien. La siguiente, there are an office near the river.
There is.
Muy bien. There is an office near the river. Ok, una oficina cerca del río. Bien, la siguiente.
Are.
There are some chocolate bars in my bag. Hay algunas barras de chocolate en mi bolsa. Ok, muy bien. Y la última.
Is.
There is a hospital near the bus station. Hay un hospital cerca de la estación de autobús. Muy bien. Ok. Perfecto. Ni ninguna dos ahorita, ¿verdad? Todos bien.
Ujú.
Ok, perfecto. Los Robbins. Ujú. Vamos al siguiente. Ay, se fue más, se fue más. Ahí está.
Mister.
Sí. Ok, entonces, English question with any. Entonces, clase de lenguaje, preguntas con any. There is a hotel in the town. Hay un hotel en el pueblo. Is there a hotel in the town? Hay un hotel en el pueblo. Use a to find out if there is something. Usa a para encontrar si hay algo de algo, ¿no? Hay alguno de algo. There are some hotels in the town. Hay algunos hoteles en el pueblo. Are there any hotels in the town? ¿Hay algún hotel? ¿Hay algunos hoteles en el pueblo? Use any to find out if there is one or more of something. Entonces, usa any para encontrar si hay algo, hay uno o más de algo. Ok, entonces, for examples, questions with any. Más ejemplos, pueden preguntas con a y any. Is there a restaurant? Is there a hospital? Are there any factories? Are there any theaters? ¿Hay un restaurante? ¿Hay un hospital? ¿Hay algunas fábricas? ¿Hay algunos teatros? Ok, bueno, pues vamos a cerrar esta sesión y los veo en 5 minutos, ¿sale? Para continuar con estos ejercicios. Sale, pues. Ok. Stop recording.